Hey, everybody, grab a knife on this one because it is time for the Witches Movie Coven. Yes, indeed. Thank you guys for waiting. We hope and think it's going to be worth the wait. We're starting a little late today. But we're glad that you are here, and I am Patty. I am one of your hosts, and you might know me from The Witching Hour or from Ghost Adventures or from here, just from here. We are thrilled to have you along. And Richard Lale, who are you?
I would be Richard Lale. Richard Lale is one name, not two. If I were just Richard, I would be a. That is, I am Lale, the gentleman psychic. I am. The show is not playing on YouTube. Well, sorry about that, Jason Menke. Anyway, I am known as the gentleman.
It is. It's at a different link.
Oh, is it a different link?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I just work here. Yeah, Richard Lale. That's me.
Jason.
I am Jason Menke. I've written a lot of witchcraft books. This is one of 9 that I've written, and I just got my hair done today, so I'm especially blonde because as I get older, it's less and less naturally blonde, which I'm man enough to admit.
And Miss Courtney.
That's me. I'm Courtney, Ghostbait on Scared and Alone. Unlike Jason, I don't dye my hair because I am just waiting for the day that I go full gray and I can go complete Swamp Witch. So that's where I'm at.
And Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather Green. I am author of Lights, Camera, Witchcraft and a journalist and an editor of witchcraft books. And I am not discussing my hair routine here on this in my life. You'll just have to figure it out and guess.
Today is not a day for me to discuss hair. I've been with the production company the last 5 hours. Okay, so we are moving. Our movie today is I've been waiting for you. I keep saying it wrong, but I've been waiting for you because there's some very, very close. It is from
1998.
98. And we appreciate anybody who watched it with us on YouTube. That's all I'm saying. Into your beautiful book.
It actually is, because it's definitely a witchcraft film and it's definitely American and it definitely falls within the right period. So I've got some context and some history for this one but we may want Richard Lale to do his unbiased synopsis.
Before the facts, yes.
I would be delighted. I do have an unbiased synopsis today. So, yeah, I guess we could start with that. Yeah.
Sure.
So my unbiased synopsis of this film, I've been waiting for you. It is 1998. It is okay, I'll just tell you this. So Becky number 2 from Roseanne and her mother, who was the public defender from Night Court, they moved to this small town in Massachusetts where the woman that she doesn't like, the girl she doesn't like, is Punky Brewster. And of course, the jock is the guy who was on Reefer Madness. So there's all of these casts, and they move into this house that is clearly about 1908, but it says the original house was built in the 1690s, but it doesn't make any sense because it opens with her being dragged out of a bedroom from 1908 and not 1698. However, I digress. She wakes up, she's in the car, they're trying to figure out how to get to this house. And of course, the crypt keeper, who's the gas station attendant, knows exactly what house going to. So they get there, and Christine, the public defender from Night Court, has to go make a food run, and the phones don't work, excepting with the fact the phones do work, for the serial killer to call her and make some obscene phone calls, but then it doesn't work anymore when mom gets home. So anyway, she's exploring this house alone. I mean, that's Becky number 2, is exploring the house alone when she gets startled by a noise, and it is a kitty cat named Salem. No, I'm just kidding. It's a kitty cat named Binks. No. That's a bunch of hocus pocus. It's a kitty cat named Hecuba. Yes, it is not Tituba, it is Hecuba. Hecuba is the kitty cat's name, which is not a talking cat like in Coraline. I was hoping that it would, but it does not. And Heather is probably thrilled that there is no talking cat with animatronics. Thrilled about that. So anyway, Becky number 2 is she gets this obscene phone call, and the man says, "I've been waiting for you." She goes to school. And she befriends, of course, the number 1 geek who is the outcast. Nobody wants to be around him. Big surprise. He's actually the killer, even though his father is the history teacher, but is estranged. And the history teacher is creeping on, what's her name, Christine from Night Court. And then, of course, Becky number 2 is pranked by Punky Brewster to go into she's invited to this fair. Even though they hate her, they want her at this fair to read the crystal ball that obviously came off of the chandelier. And she reads these things because they have this little wire in her ear. But after hearing one very boring reading, they end up by abandoning her. And the killer, this mysterious figure in a witch mask, who, by the way, I failed to mention. So the history is that this old house is where a witch was burned, because that totally 100% happened in Salem and its outlying regions in the 1690s. It did not happen. I know Courtney's rolling her eyes at that.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the witch had escaped from some insane asylum, which was clearly prevalent in Puritan America in 1690. Clearly there were so many asylums that were up and running in 1690. Anyway, so this haunted witch is supposed to have cursed this whatever 3rd or 4th generation, and she's going to kill all of these kids in this future generation, starting with the people who set ablaze to her set her ablaze. So she knows, the witch clearly knows what has happened last summer, what they did last summer. And it's a real scream, because she starts saying about, they've abandoned her. So she just starts talking off the cuff, and she starts talking about smoke and fire, and that this other girl needs to be careful, and she knows what happened last summer. It turns out this girl, the girl that was sort of one of the generations, she goes out in her car and she just wants to get home. And of course it stalls in the rain. It hadn't been raining before, but it starts raining. And then Wolverine comes out of the shadows wearing a witch mask. And then he scrapes up the car and he punches through the glass, and he murders her by scaring her to death. And that's clearly how everyone dies in a slasher film, is they get scared to death, and that's what happens. So they blame this Sarah. By the way, Becky number 2, her name is Sarah, as if they needed something more original. Sarah Sanderson was already taken, so she's Sarah Zoltar or something like that. And Sarah Zoltar is trying to say, I didn't do it. I just was repeating the things that you did. And Punky Brewster says, no, she's crazy. We left. We didn't have anything to do with that. And it turns out, of course, that the teacher who's been creeping on the Night Court lady, the mom, is actually the killer, but is not the killer. He disappears because it's the little twink best friend who is sort of, it turns out that he was... At some point, his mother fled. She was actually from there, and then moved to New York. And then he was actually one of the 6, even though they're supposed to be 5, and it doesn't make any sense. And then it's been a year since all of this happened, and the teacher disappeared, and they couldn't prove that he was in fact the father. Roll credits. I still don't get it, but that was about what I saw in this tribute, this ode to 1990s slasher films, but nobody gets slashed.
And now that we are all clear, thank you. You put it all together from what I've seen. And now maybe we should move over to Heather, now that we understand the film so clearly from the more technical academic perspective.
Okay. So I'm going to give context. It is 1998. We're towards the end of the witch craze movies, which started about a decade earlier and went through this end of the Satanic Panic into the change in 1996 when all the witchcraft movies completely reverse their stance on witchcraft, and it's a fascinating study. You can read about that in 2 chapters in my book and how that worked. But this is right at the tail end of it. It also is at the end of it is also at the reinvigoration of the teen slasher, which started in I believe it was 1996 with Scream. So we've had a really interesting period of time. It's also the beginning of the age of the really the golden age of teen films generally, which extend into the 2000s. And there's been plenty of studies on why that exists. But I'm going to give you the top 5 things that are interesting about this movie, and then I'll elaborate a little bit. So number 1.
Can I just butt in and say how impressed I am that you found 5 things?
Oh gosh, absolutely. I could do a whole 2-hour lecture on this film and why it's important. But let's I could do that about any film, Jason. Let's be honest.
It's true. Very true.
It is true. So the first thing is this is a standard teen slasher film. It's Carrie meets Scream meets The Craft with a dripped in a little bit of witch spice and ending with a good Scooby-Doo ending. I mean, you cannot change that. That's what this is. It is obviously part of that reinvigoration of the slasher, and it capitalizes on all the things that were popular at that time. So urban legends, everything. Okay, that was super popular in the late 90s. The upper middle class white folks, teenagers in high school, all the things. Number 2, it was written by, it was a book based on Gallows Hill written by Lois Duncan. This is a standard Salem-esque story. And so it's important, Courtney's already shaking her head. It's important to understand that very early on in Hollywood's history, Salem became a theme, not just a history. It became a legend. It became a mythology. And I know people of Salem complained about that. I have articles from the early 19th century, early 20th century of Salem residents complaining about this. But that is what this is also taking from. They're not going to tell you the history of Salem, but they're going to use the idea of Salem, the lore, to create a witchcraft spooky story. Courtney, just take a deep breath. This is a fact. There's nothing you can do about it. It has been going on for 100+ years.
There's a lot of hexing I can do about it.
Well, you can hex other people. I'm just reporting.
You're just the messenger. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the situation.
Number 3, of course, we already have mentioned Richard Lell. Thank you. The cast. This is an NBC made-for-television movie, so you have a lot of famous TV characters. You have the Night Court lawyer, Margie Post. You have Sarah Chalk, I think is her last name. Becky from Roseanne, of course. You have Soleil Moon Frye, who's Punky Brewster, which a show I loved, and she also was in Sabrina. So you have a lot of different TV characters that were very recognizable at the time, right? Not the A-list stars that you found in Scream or I Know What You Did Last Summer, but you have some very recognizable characters. Number 4, the director. This is an interesting one. Director Christopher Leach. He directed a movie called Satan's School for Girls, which I hope we do at some point, which was the 2000 version of a remake from 1970s, which was also another witchcraft teen horror. And just by the title, Satan's School for Girls, you can hear how fabulous this movie is. And actually there's a connection between the two by the actors. So it's a lot of fun, and I hope we do that. He also directed some episodes of Charmed and CSI. So he was doing his thing at that time. And then number 5, which may be the most interesting for us, for Wiccan historians, is that the prayer that she reads while she's holding the crystal ball, she reads a prayer or a poem or something. And that is actually a real Wiccan prayer written by Caitlin Breen in 1995. It was published online. You can find it. And they actually pulled from it, which demonstrates again what we talk about when we talk about the craft is by the mid 90s, television especially and movies were reinventing the way they defined Wicca and witchcraft. They were starting to separate them out. You had witchcraft is evil and satanic, and Wicca is peaceful and good and a religion and something. So you start to see that happening, and here this is what you see. Wicca, real Wicca, is starting to be introduced. And you, of course, as I said, in this, you hear the word Wicca being used. You also see the prayer, an actual Wiccan prayer written by the priestess, evident in the film. And there's some other little things here and there that appear. So those are the 5 most interesting things that could be expanded upon and discussed about this movie. I'm really sorry you guys saw the poor version on YouTube, because I saw one that was clear, and it actually is a whole lot better than the one on YouTube when you watch it, when you actually can see what's going on. And that's my report for tonight.
Thank you so much. Now that we completely understand the movie, Courtney, you have to say something. I'm sorry.
I'm ready. I'll say things. I have a lot to say, actually. So I'm going to start off by saying that I only watched 30 minutes of this movie because my ADHD cannot watch poor YouTube versions of anything, and I could not stay focused on it. However, having said that, we all know how I feel about the Salem thing, but more than I hate the Salem thing, I love the 90s, and I would have loved this movie had I watched the whole thing. I already know, because it was so 90s, it was ridiculous, and I love everyone that's in it, and I don't care that it was stupid, and you know I love that too. So I'm just saying, like, I need to get it on DVD. I'll take a DVD, like, over a stream at this point, because I want to watch it.
It's so 90s, Courtney, that I didn't tell you this in my little text back and forth. It's so 90s that she gets a pager. Like, she gets a pager.
Beautiful. I'm jealous of that because I was not allowed to have a pager in the 90s.
And it says 911, and that's where she goes. She goes to meet her boyfriend out in the woods.
As I said before, it's so 90s. It has like a fake Smash Mouth song in it. I mean, that is how late 90s this movie is.
It is like, I don't think that there's a 90s teen movie that I don't like. So watching it, granted, I pulled a Patty and I was watching it on my phone, but it would not like buffer enough for me to be able to see it either. So it was like blurry, and so I was just like, what is this? So I could only get through 30 minutes of it. But even though I could only get through those 30 minutes of it, I was intrigued. So
yes, watch it. Get it on DVD. I saw it streaming originally. I went to look to see if I had it on DVD, and that's how I saw it clearly, but I don't. And I had to get a lot of movies on, actually, some of the movies for my book I had to get on VHS. I had to order VHS tapes because I didn't even get as far as DVD. But this one, I did not have a DVD copy. So it was streaming at some point. It was on Amazon at some point. So keep an eye out for it, or get it on DVD, because it actually is not as, it really is not that it's fun. It is. There's some good jump scares in it. It's very 90s and it's fun.
I love the 90s. Here's what I want to say though. Of the 30 minutes that I watched, when she was upstairs, whatever it was, she found out that the witch died in her house. She's upstairs. Her mother comes upstairs. She's like got candles. She's about to sacrifice somebody. I don't know what she was doing. I couldn't see most of it. But then the cat comes in. Like, everything's fine. It's all normal. The mom's like, oh, just an after school activity. Great. Like, love that. And then the cat comes in that she doesn't know is like, immediately I was like, please tell me the cat's the witch. Like, it reincarnated as the thing. So can someone tell me if that's true or not? Because I didn't get to the end.
It's not. It's
no,
just
ruined it. Lost opportunity then, and now I'm mad about it.
It's just a stray cat that doesn't talk. It doesn't go through magical worlds. It just is a stray cat hiding in the closet, where I wish I were instead of watching that film.
It's such a wasted opportunity. It really is.
I was thinking it was going to be, it's not a real cat. It's a spirit cat. It's a magical cat. It's the dead witch's cat. Yeah, I kept thinking it had to go somewhere with it.
As a
red herring cat.
As a 90s thing, I thought it would be voiced by Tim Allen at any moment. And you'd be like, I'm a
Guys,
real man cat. Rah,
I
you
am
know,
so
something.
happy. It was just a cat. It was just a black cat. It was just her friend. And that was so much better. I was so happy with that. The stinking talking cat in Sabrina drives me crazy. Thank goodness it didn't talk. Thank goodness it was just a cat.
I also heard that Jerry Seinfeld was considered to be the cat. I'm just a cat. What are you talking about? I'm just here to talk to you. What's the deal with cat food?
Oh God.
Why does it always smell like a cat's breath? You know, like it would have been fantastic.
I mean, if it was a real cat and it wasn't a spirit cat, which it turned out to be, she gave it some tuna, which was nice. But I was going, that cat's been in a closet. It needs some water. It needs some fresh water and a litter box right now.
And a rabies shot. You know, that's what I was worried about.
Collar.
And with the sound of it, it needed a rabies shot. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
The sound when it comes out of the closet?
Yeah, that was. I actually thought that out loud as I was watching it. When I was like, it was like a lion and a tiger in the closet, and then it comes out. It was like meow, and I was like, okay, cool.
So the cat was one of the many symbols to make this a witchcraft movie. So you had a cat, you had a Ouija board, you had tarot cards, you had candles, incense. I mean, there was just a palm reading. I mean, you had just had crystals, you had everything, and the way she dressed was so LA, was so, you know, it was so. It was so. She watched The Craft. Let's be honest. Sarah watched The Craft.
No, she didn't.
She so did. Did you see the way she was dressing and acting? She watched The
Like
Craft.
Meg from Family Guy with that pink little hat. And
Meg,
that's-
Meg, 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 Meg. Meg, Meg, Meg.
Oh, my
I
God.
always like that this absolutely beautiful person, like the Sarah character in this movie, moves to a new school where she's immediately the outcast and everyone hates her. I'll tell you, when a drop dead gorgeous girl moved to my school, they were immediately one of the most popular people in the entire school. Like, that never happens when you are that beautiful that all of a sudden everyone hates you. That just does not happen. It does not happen.
Get in.
You're right.
She didn't dress that weird. She would have been the coolest person at that school, and everybody would have loved her. No
Especially
question
because
about it.
She was from California, and this is 1998 in Massachusetts. So those kids would have absolutely been gaga over her.
Yeah, they would have thought she was the coolest person because she was from California. It's not like she moved to the deep south and they were like, hey, Yankee, get out of our school or something.
And not only did she move from California, but her mom played on Night Court and she was on Roseanne.
Absolutely.
And that's the Carrie part of the movie, is her moving there. And a lot of these witchcraft movies, the witch moves in and she's not like made fun, you know, she's not made fun of in this way with some kind of power. So that's the Carrie part of the movie, is that she's ostracized, made fun of, but she's not brought into it. She's kind of like, she's Carrie in this movie. So that's the Carrie part. Of course, you know, you have the craft part.
But she had a nice, normal, like, well-adjusted mother, unlike Carrie.
No,
I mean,
no, yes.
Right? I mean, Carrie's mom's terrible.
No,
Right?
yeah.
And Marky Post, Christine from Night Court, would be a great mother. Absolutely great mother.
She was totally cool about the ritual.
Yeah.
And she carried the entire film.
Oh my God.
I thought that she talked too old for high school. Was that just me? I mean, I know she came in with this attitude and stuff, but she sounded more like a college girl than a high school girl, just in how quick she was. Maybe I was slow at that time.
Us quick girls, we sound like that. Okay, I was like that too. I had a mouth like that in high school, in elementary school, probably, but definitely in high
I
school.
take that back completely. It was me.
Just kidding.
I didn't hate it. I'm going to go with Courtney's quote. I didn't hate it. I mean, it was bad and it was a bad thing, but I bought into everything that everybody bought into, the 90s and the kids, and I liked the high school. And I really was so overdone, the slasher, though. I mean, she could have been a bad evil witch without having to be the slasher film part of it, though, and the scream part of it and all that. But I didn't hate it. I didn't. It kept me going. I only fell asleep once. Only once. Only fell asleep once.
I don't think you would have if you had seen the good version, the clear version, because it has some really good jump scares and some interesting parts.
It did.
So,
I had the tension. I had all the stuff. It was good. I actually liked the opening when the phone kept ringing in different rooms because I've had that experience at the Biltmore Hotel. And this one rang and this one rang and none of them were working. So I got scared. It was perfect.
I liked our terrible, dubbed version on YouTube. It reminded me of that period where I would record things on VHS and then go watch them. And I was poor, so I only had like 2 VHS tapes that had been taped over 75 times by that point, right? So the fact that the YouTube version repeats lines periodically and skips and jumps and hisses just like a real VHS tape brought me back to the 90s in a very powerful way.
Yeah, especially when it repeated itself like at least 3 times.
Yes.
Just that. Okay, we'll see it again. I guess I needed to. Yeah.
And there are moments where it feels like you need to get up and adjust the tracking.
yeah.
Tracking is, for those of you who don't remember VCRs, tracking was something you would have to adjust periodically to have a clear picture.
Yes. I do remember that tracking, and nobody wanted to get up to do it or switch the channel.
That's when you just suffer.
Nope. Just watch whatever's on Jason's 75 times recorded VHS tape. Is it an episode of Saturday Night Live? Christmas special that no one else has ever heard of? Or is it a made-for-TV horror movie that's not particularly scary? Who knows? You get all kinds of things.
It was not scary.
This was not scary.
Not scary. This was, I mean, the only thing scary about it was actually watching it, I think. Because I don't want to give it away. I don't want to let you know how I'm going to vote on this wonderful classic film.
Well, we definitely don't already know at all.
You don't know. You already don't know.
It's a secret.
I enjoyed all these horror movies that were made then, and Scream really reignited the slasher film, bringing back the good old days of the 80s when we Halloween and Friday the 13th and Texas Chainsaw and all those great
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street, and really the teen slasher really got going in the 70s and then hit its heyday really in the 80s with those. And I never watched them. I would not watch slasher films at all. And it wasn't until I was in film school and I saw Silence of the Lambs and then a few other horror films that I started to get more interested. And then when going into writing this book and research for this book, I knew I was going to have to watch a lot of horror movies and a lot of slashers. And I'm like, okay, here we go. I tell you, the dreams, if you watch a lot of slasher movies like this, you'll have really funky dreams. So I'll just tell you that. But this one, I really enjoyed the teen slashers of the late 90s. And there's a bunch of them. And, Scream really started it. And I Know What You Did Last Summer, and I Know What You did last summer 2 and 3 and 4 and Scream 7. I hadn't seen all the Screams. I've only seen a couple of them. There's a ton of them. And even the ones that aren't, mainstream A-list level are really fun to watch. I'm going to have to agree with Courtney on that one.
I have a hot take about slasher movies. Scream is the only good one. The whole franchise, there's not one bad one. The whole franchise is fantastic. It's the only good one. I don't care. I've watched minutes of I can't with Michael Myers. I can't with Jason Voorhees. I can't with any of them. Even Nightmare on Elm Street, I watched it once. Fine, whatever. Jason, leave. Okay, irrelevant. Irrelevant.
You're just wrong. It's fine. Yeah. You can be wrong on this show.
Oh well. I said what I said. Okay, Scream is the only good.
Freddy Krueger is amazing and awesome. And Nightmare on Elm Street movies are good.
He runs like this.
The original Halloween is good.
Scary.
This is not
Halloween?
a slasher film, though,
Absolutely
because there's really not much slashing in the movie. And I've seen more blood when I stub my toe. I mean, slasher light might be a good way to describe this.
It was a TV movie. It was
exactly.
It was a TV movie.
So considering that, because all these other movies we're mentioning weren't made for TV movies. So this was actually pretty okay being made for TV. They got you the scrap, even though they didn't have to show I was never quite clear really. Was mom dead? I didn't, yeah, but it doesn't matter. So I think they did really good for made for TV. How many of those slasher movies were made for TV?
None.
No.
Which is why they're actually slasher movies. I mean, this is like G-rated slasher film, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, you know, or slasher knockoff film. Something
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Well, and there were a ton of them. When Carrie came out, there was a ton of TV made for TV knockoffs, and some of them are fun to watch, you know, and it's just that's what this is, and it's I don't know.
I have something really bold and brave to say right now, and I don't care. Jason just preemptively turned your light off. 30 minutes of this movie better than Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh
no!
Oh, wow! Wow!
That's
That's
what I
a word
said.
right there.
I might just leave the show.
said.
And I don't even hate this movie. I thought it was fun. The performances are pretty good. The cast is like really stacked for a movie of this caliber and like this low of a budget. It's not a bad movie, but I mean, it is not Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. The villain, the antagonist, is completely not memorable and completely not scary at all. You know, and not funny. Freddy Krueger is funny. That's what makes Freddy Krueger great.
And the antagonist in this one is a kid who weighs like 28 pounds.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to have killed the jock, and he's supposed to have scared this woman to death. I mean, it's possible that it is his father, his estranged father, who hates those kids because they get away with murder. That's
There's
quote.
the Scooby-Doo part.
Those meddling kids.
And he looked like a Scooby-Doo villain too. I mean, the costume stuff was just so bad. Like, I'm gonna dress up in a robe and try to kill you. That is not good for running at all. That's not practical. You might as well just have a long cape. It's that bad.
No cape.
I'm gonna have
that's what I was thinking of too.
politely disagree with Courtney on the on the
I just like to
slasher
be
thing.
controversial. I just like to be controversial.
I'm with you on the 90s slashers. I love all horror movies since I started, you know, over the last 10 or 20 years. I've just loved horror movies all around, but their Halloween is brilliant. And there are so many good slasher movies.
Brilliant.
Now, they aren't filmed as cleanly and as slickly, or is that even a word, as the 1990s. The 1990s is a different breed of slasher film. The 80s and the 70s ones are more raw. But, you know, I mean, Jaws is almost a slasher film.
Jaws is exceptional.
You know,
I'll take no notes on
It's
Jaws.
not a teen slasher film, but
I don't. No notes on Jaws. Go ahead.
but no.
Silence of the Lambs, and I got to tell you,
Brilliant movie.
it's a brilliant movie. And the late great Hannibal Lecter he was the late great Hannibal Lecter had someone for dinner. He was late and great.
The slasher films though, and one of my favorite slasher films, and Courtney, you can take your sunglasses off.
I'm waiting.
Just remove them. Pumpkinhead is a slasher film, and it is brilliant. And I don't care if you don't like the monster at the end, which we discussed. It is one of my favorites. So there are a lot of better ones, and there are a lot of good slasher films out you besides Scream. Although Scream is nice, you need to just branch out a little.
Oh, it's not for a lack of branching out. Okay, let me tell you. We want to talk about Salem. Let me tell you a Salem story. Okay, here's the thing. When I was a young tour guide in the prime of my years, going out on tours in October, it is stressful. There's a lot happening. We're on a tight schedule. We have to get our group of however many people through the crowds of October and get them back in time to go right back out and do another tour. So I'd have my groups out, and there's street performers everywhere. But there's 3 particular street performers that were out when I was doing this who were the biggest inconveniences to my life. One was Michael Myers, one was Freddy Krueger, one was Jason Voorhees. They had movie quality costumes, their body types fit the movie body types, and they carried around speakers so their theme songs would play, so you'd hear them before you saw them. It was the bane of my existence. So one night I had a group out and I'm trying to rush, not rush, but like I'm trying to like get my job done. And I'm standing there and I hear the music, and no one in the group knows what's happening, but I know what's about to happen because it's happened 17 times already to me today. So I hear the music. I know he's behind me in the bushes somewhere hiding. So I'm standing there and I'm like, okay, here we go. And I'm trying to now rush through my introduction so I can move on before he gets any ideas. And then all of a sudden I lose my whole group because they all start screaming, oh my God, oh no. What's that? Oh, why does he do it? Because he's standing behind me like this. So I just very calmly like look up. He's like 8 feet tall. I look up and I was like, we talked about this. You need a ticket if you want to join the tour. Otherwise, leave me alone. And then I continue and everyone's like, how are you so calm about this? I'm like, because he's done this 14 times today. Okay. So now I'm at the very end of my rope and I walk. I have it's like I'm strategically placed. There's 900 tour groups. I'm strategically placed in the perfect spot in front of the cemetery where the zigzagged, whatever I'm talking. I got to get out of this spot before all the rest of the groups come. So I got to finish my story. And morphing out of a wall somewhere comes Jason Voorhees. Now I can't. I'm tapped out. I'm done. He walks up to me. The group is screaming again. So I just turn and I look at him and I go, oh, Jason, it's been so long. And I open my arms and I hug this man in this mask. And he goes rigid. And then he turns and then he walks away. And they never bothered me again. And I was like, that's right. I do, however, have a picture of me with the Freddy Krueger guy because he used to stand by a light post and like tap his little knife fingers on the light. Like people, it just like have a job. And then I have a picture of him where we're looking longingly into each other's eyes and he's very seductively with the knife fingers, like got them on my throat. And I was like, okay, so that's my one fond memory. But they used to like stand outside the bars that had windows and just like stand for like 30 minutes at a time, just like looking into the bar. What are you doing? Okay, stop interrupting my tour and go stand by a bar. So no matter what, I saw Freddy vs. Jason. I don't. Okay,
so much fun.
It's ruined for me. Okay, there's no ghost faces interrupting my tour. Only these 3 clowns.
So you're admitting that your personal biases towards these actors who were playing these characters, because if this had really been Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees, you would be dead, of course. That is why you do not like these amazing films. Is that what you're telling me? It's prejudice because of these other people.
No, it's because
that's not
they're
fair.
Terrible.
That's not fair.
And I watch movies so many times if I like them. And I had Nightmare on Elm Street was one of my first DVDs that I got when I first started watching horror movies. I watched it once because I didn't like it.
I've never watched it. And
don't bother because it's terrible.
I won't watch it. I'm traumatized because when I was a kid, when I was like 7, I'm not going to tell you what year that was, but I was like 7, and I went to this every Saturday. My parents would go to this auction house. It was every Saturday, and there were some kids, and we were out, just my brother and I, and this group of kids came around and they said, "Are you Rich?" And I thought they meant my name, Rich, and I went, "How did you know? How did you know that?" And it turns out they were asking if I was wealthy, and I thought they knew my name. So then we start talking and they start telling me about Freddy Krueger and the claw coming out of the bed and the blood spraying everywhere. And I was so enthralled and terrified of this story. And then it was the same year that there was a television series late at night, like at midnight, that there was the Nightmare on Elm Street show. It was like a 45-minute show or something every night. And I happened to have been spending the night in my sister's room, and she had the television on, and that claw came up, and I screamed and I cried, and I was terrified I was traumatized from the time I was 7, and because of that, I still won't even watch Puppet Masters, because there was another. It was being played at my friend's house or my nephew's. The stepmom was in there watching it, and it scared me, and I don't like slasher.
I have to tell you guys, I just got back from Penhurst Paracon, and it's not just a paranormal convention, it's a horror con. So I just stayed at the hotel, spent 3 days in a dark basement with CJ Graham. played Jason Voorhees, with Tyler Mane, who played Michael Myers, and Bob Lamore, who played Leatherface. They're very big. They're very big and stunt dudes. They were doing the panels and they were throwing chairs around completely in character. So that's where I just got home from. It was fun. They're big.
Home Alone.
I was with you, Richard Lell. I was terrified as a child. I would not watch any of these films at all. I would not watch horror films at all. I mean, the closest I got, I'm trying to think of what scared me. Very, very easy to scare me. I did not watch anything. And literally the very first, well, there was a 1940s film I watched called The Spiral Staircase, a noir that scared me so much I would not watch anything after that. And it's stuck in my head even to this day. But I didn't watch the first horror movie until I saw Silence of the Lambs in the theater. And I was so in love with this movie that I'm like, okay, game on. And I didn't really get into slashers until later because it's a different type of horror, and slashers are very unique and they have a lot of stuff. Yes, there's a lot more to slashers than simply the horror portion of it. The horror is not just the blood. They're visceral, they're teenage, there's sexuality, there's all kinds of stuff going on in horror, and there's many academics have written lots and lots about what these movies are and aren't, and why they're different in the 70s and 80s and the 90s, particularly between the Satanic Panic and the fear of the 2000. Oh my goodness, here it comes. Do you all remember that when everybody was terrified of the year 2000 was coming? Y2K.
Y2K.
Oh my God. I wrote about that in my journal constantly.
We're going back to
teen
1900.
angst and anxiety then.
Back to
I bought an extra 2 cans of green beans at my house just in case. That was about it. That's as far as I cared about it.
I would love to know what psychologists think about me, because I've never thought that a slasher movie is at all scary. In fact, I can't even classify them in my own brain as horror. Horror to me, like, there's nothing. I don't get even the anxiety about it. Like, it doesn't do it at all for me. So when I ask someone like out in life, what's your favorite horror movie, and they tell me a slasher, I'm like, okay, cool. That's not what I meant.
It's just a type of horror. But we can have this discussion offline, and we can go all into what the abject is and how we mesh these things. I did all kinds of research on this in film school about these different things. It's actually super fascinating, but super nerdy.
I'm ready to nerd out about it, honestly, because I want to know.
I saw Halloween when I was 5.
Wow.
It was playing on, I think it was just playing on NBC or something, like a censored version on Halloween night. But all the kids got done and all the parents wanted to hang out at somebody's house. And they sent us down to a room and we turned on Halloween. And even with a lot of the blood removed, I had never been so terrified in my life. And that winter, my father would say things to me like, son, go to the garage and get me a beer. And to get to the refrigerator in the garage, you had to go out the door, and then it was 2 feet in the dark before you got to the light. And I always thought that I was going to die and that Michael Myers was going to kill me. And I would go into the garage and I would just boom, run so fast to that light and flip it on. And then when I had to go back, I had to turn it off, and then I would turn it off and then immediately run to that room. That messed me up. That messed me up for a long time.
Wow.
Probably is why I'm like I am today. So thanks, Dad. Thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed your Rhinelander beers back in the day.
Alien might have been the first horror movie I actually
Oh, don't talk to me about Alien.
That's sci-fi, but it is a horror movie, and that may have been the first. And my dad, you reminded me, my dad used to love to scare my brother and I because he was a big sci-fi fan, and so that was a big I could not get through it. It was terrifying.
I watched in the movie theater with my mother Scream. My mother was always fascinated by psychological, what can make a person go into this homicidal rage. And so she would oftentimes, my cousin Matthew Lillard he's yes, Shaggy, but also he's the Scream guy. Anyway, so my cousin was in it, and we would go and we watched it. And my mother said, it's really scary. This is the scariest film that you can watch because there aren't demons and there aren't ghosts and there aren't. These things could happen, and in fact, were inspired by actual events, and that is the scariest part of any film is what the psychology behind it.
That's true.
That's true.
I agree wholeheartedly. Anyway, I know we are getting close with time. I know, Courtney, you didn't have quotes, but we do have some quotes. Heather,
I had a couple that I wrote down when I knew Courtney wasn't going to be able to get to it. They're not Courtney level great, but I can just read them off really quick. One is when she looks at the bunch of the students inside the hallway at the high school, and she yells, "Garlic, you morons, is for vampires. Don't any of you ever watch television?" And I thought that was funny because this was made during Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And then she says Gen X, Gen EX, as in ex-humans. I thought that was cute.
It was cute.
And then the very last line is because a promise is a promise, which she says when she's talking about the witch coming back. She said, "You may have not come back, but you did come back." And she said, because a promise is a promise. And I like that. But that's all I had. They aren't Courtney level fantastic, but
Good.
I like
I
them.
love them.
They're good, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you for filling in, Heather.
Okay.
Can we talk about how weird it is that the main protagonist dates somebody who tried to set her on fire at the end of the movie? I mean, this is crazy. Even if she's just setting him up to die later, she still is like kissing him and making out with him. He tried to set her on fire. Like, that's gruesome. Like, this movie, there are things about it that boggle the mind. I'm sorry. I had to get that in at some point.
Confusing.
Well, while we have you there, Jason, do we have a movie moment?
We do. We have like two things that came up during the watching of this film and then during the process of getting to watch the movie. So it starts with things my friends asked me when I told them I was watching the movie I've Been Waiting for You. One of them said, "That's a real movie?" Another one said, "I thought that was a song by ABBA." And then my wife said, "Why do you need to watch 90 minutes of that? Isn't that just a scene in Mamma Mia?" So yes, dear friends, I've Been Waiting for You was probably a real movie. Today it only exists on YouTube in a version uploaded to that site through an old VHS copy. My guess is that the movie star Sarah Chalke, who was later on Scrubs for years and was Becky #2 on Roseanne, bought up all the DVD copies and destroyed them in a fire, and then paid every streaming service in the world to never air this movie again. And now, here are 7 things you did not know about I've Been Waiting for You. Please ignore Heather's 5 points from earlier. This movie originally aired on the Fox Family Channel on July 4th, 1998 at 2 a.m., sandwiched between an episode of The 700 Club and the case of The Shark Encounter, a Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen adventure. Work on this movie counted as time served for TV's Punky Brewster, Soleil Moonfry, after she was convicted of criminal mischief in an LA district court. Upon completion of the film, it was revealed that director Christopher Leach died on his way back to his home planet. Marky Post was forced to star in this movie after losing a bet with her Night Court co-star John Larroquette, who was originally cast to play Rosemary Zoltane, the mother of the movie's protagonist. And the film was based on a novel called Gallows Hill, which was about the unlikely friendship of a cat and a ghost dog. The movie obviously went through several rewrites until the dog and cat became only minor characters in the film. The film's killer was originally going to be the character Wolverine from the X-Men, but the producers were unable to secure the rights to Wolverine. Having already made one of Wolverine's claws, the producers decided to make those the killer's weapon, even though it looked incredibly stupid and unthreatening throughout the film. And finally, the writers settled on the non-threatening phrase, "I've been waiting for you," as the tagline of The Killer, after an agitated pizza delivery driver was forced to wait for over an hour before someone came to collect the pizza he was delivering. Exasperated, he screamed, "I've been waiting for you," very loudly at one of the producers while scowling. The writers decided that phrase was scary enough for the Fox Family Channel and went with it. And those are 7 things you did not know about this movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank
Was
you
I too
very
mean to the movie, Courtney? Is that it?
No, that was pretty funny, but it was just the like direct jab at Heather that like I'm kind of in awe of right now. Like
No. Well, Heather's like,
that was all fake news. So I'm good with it. He can do his
I mean,
fake
Heather at the
news.
beginning is throwing down truth bombs. This movie was on NBC and stuff, and I'm like, how does anybody know that? Of course, Heather wrote a book about it, so she knows. But, I'm like, where would this movie have aired? Oh yeah, Fox Family Channel, later called Freeform, or MTV.
Listen, hold on about Fox Family. Fox Family was like in the heyday of horror in its day, because that's where I learned that I wanted to be on a ghost show when I grew up. Was Fox Family's Most Haunted Places.
Oh, I remember that
used
one.
to scare
Yeah.
the ever living
And
daylights
that
out of me.
voice.
I was traumatized about the Villisca Axe murder house on Fox Family before I went
And-
there and was traumatized for real.
And they showed an episode of the 700 Club every night, which is even more
Every
traumatizing.
night. Every single night.
I think.
There's nothing scarier than Pat Robertson. I think that you should find Jesus. That stuff is frightening.
Yep.
Horror.
Better
I
than a
love
ghost
Fox
story.
Family.
Yeah.
The deal is with the different channels, like with Fox Family, and they were competing at that point with Disney, and Disney was doing, and they had the Friday night Disney stuff, and it was like everybody was starting to cater to doing these films and start in the 90s. We in the 80s had after school specials, but we didn't have these channels that did these special kids stuff at night every week like this. The 90s kids had that, and that's what this was aired during, just like Courtney's can attest to. Fox Family made her a ghost hunter.
Mm-hmm. Sure did.
It's like The Craft made us witches.
So, what? What are we haven't voted yet. I want to talk about what we're seeing next week first, while people get together.
The Conjurer.
Yeah.
It's like 2007, I think, or 2006. It's not The Conjuring, it's The Conjurer. And it is on Peacock. I looked to make sure it wasn't YouTube. It's on Peacock and a couple other channels.
Okay. I may or may not be with you. A good chance I won't. I am filming, but I'll be with you in spirit if I am not here. But you guys all have to come. But now we are down to that big moment. I've been waiting for you. Wands up, wands down.
I've been waiting for this wands up, wands down.
For day.
I don't know, Richard Lale. I'm surprised by that vote.
You know, it came as such a shock. because
Shock.
Can I
really
also
thought
tell you
that-
how horrified I was to see Punky Brewster smoking in this film? Like, completely unnecessary and destroys me ever watching Punky Brewster ever again.
Wow.
I just expected better from Punky as she grew up.
That raises the question, Jason. Do you actually watch Punky Brewster still? Did you go and revisit the TV show?
There was a revival in 2021 on Peacock, Heather.
Okay. I just had to know.
Jeez, where have you been?
Really not on Peacock.
I love that this isn't me and Jason this week, that it's Heather and Jason.
Wait,
this
and
week.
no, Jason, I'm going to admit right here is that in sometime in late elementary school, I actually was Punky Brewster for Halloween.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I have photos proof of that. So
There's a Punky Brewster. It's one of my favorite Christmas episodes of a TV show ever. So, like, you know, I have like deep love for the TV show Punky Brewster.
the things we learn on this show.
Yeah.
We
Wow.
are very mixed on this one. We have, 3 ups, a neutral, and a very big down. In our audience, we have down, up. It's just kind of mixed. What we have, up, maybe more ups than down. Ups just wins it, no matter what people think.
Like I said, Jason's opinion is irrelevant. So
Oh.
Oh,
We thank people. We're starting a little late, some personal stuff, which we want too early to talk about, but we want to give love to our producer Rob just because we love him. And anything anybody has coming up that they want to talk about?
I did something that I'd like to talk about. I went to the Wicked Pissa Spring Parafair, and I had a table for Scared and Alone and Witches Movie Coven. And that table was strategically placed in direct eyesight of the haunted doll table. So just to give y'all a little preview of the dent that I made in my bank account,
Holy crap.
I figured she was the best one to bring on the show tonight because she is a witch.
Where
So she is
where's my
personally-
banishing pentagram?
Thank you. She is
I bought 5. So there are 5. There's a Lizzie Borden one, and this is the thing that I appreciated the most about my purchasing all these dolls. The Lizzie Borden one, they were all sitting at my table, and the doll lady came over at one point with a little thing in her hand, and she said, Lizzie doesn't have enough brain matter on her. Can I put some more blood on her? And I was like, you don't have to put blood on all of them. Just put blood everywhere. And so she sat there at my table and put brain matter, like glops of brain matter on Lizzie Borden. So I love them all. And they're all terrifying and beautiful. And one is a scarecrow. And so you'll meet them all. But today is this one.
Courtney, you have done such a 180 on dolls.
I
It is
know.
beautiful.
It's the same thing because these, even though they're dolls, they're not really haunted. They're just made to look haunted. So therefore, they're not really haunted. So they're not really scary.
But they might actually be haunted because you can actually do that. They can inhabit.
Yes.
Spirits can actually.
I did not ask. I didn't ask.
You are filling it full of energy. You are filling it. You are creating a vessel for the spirit world. And so one of these days, one of those dolls' heads will spin, and it won't be because of the animatronics that are inside of it. You'll take the batteries out, and that head is still going to go right and left.
These are real dolls and not animatronics. These are not a dolls. These are
Not a doll is still a doll.
They'll still spin. They'll still spin.
Okay.
Anyway,
Nobody asked. Nobody asked any of you. Nobody
Everyone.
asked anybody. Nobody asked.
congratulations on your new dolls.
Thanks.
I'm going to be in Dallas this weekend for anybody in the Dallas area doing this whole witchy weekend of workshops and seances and private sessions. Next week, I'm going to be in Wisconsin at Spirits in the Spring. Next week after that, I'm going to be at Ventura Paracon. And then I'm going to be in New York for a book signing. Just go to my website to figure out where I am. Anybody else?
Go ahead, Jason.
Go ahead, Heather. Go ahead.
I was just going to jump in and say we've got 2 months until Mystic South launches on July 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th. I think I got the dates right. Last weekend in July. So we're getting close to the end. Very exciting. I will be doing a doll workshop there. And Colin, here's Annabelle. See my wand? She lives with me, actually. I saw your note about Courtney. And so I will be bringing my Clarabelle, we call her here, and I will be bringing her and a number of my dolls with me to do a doll puppet workshop, as well as one of What is a Witch Really workshop. So come out to Atlanta in July, and I'll talk about the Wizard of Oz convention as we get closer. That's not till September.
And let me just jump in. Colin, where Courtney got her fabulous t-shirt is mysterycontrol.com. You can get quotes from Courtney everywhere. Mysterycontrol.com, as well as Philip the Goat t-shirts, hoodies, my underwear. It is a huge site. All right. Who else was speaking next? We got jumped in.
I will be in North Dakota next week for the North Dakota Grand Sabbath. I'm sure most of you live in North Dakota or are close, so we'll be able to come out and see me there. And then June 12th, I'm at LlewelynCon, which is a free online event where I will be talking about the witch Raymond Buckland. It's free to go to, but you should sign up and reserve a spot beforehand to make sure that you have a place to watch me wax eloquently online.
Beautiful.
And I'm here in New Orleans. I'm everywhere the Gentleman Psychics are sold, and that's me, the Gentleman Psychic. You can find me at University Magicus. I teach on Saturday morning. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm a little bit of everywhere, so I'm really easy to be found. Also, you can buy some art there on the website. I can't remember. There was a QR code anyway up there.
All right, thank you. And on that note, it is that time. Please come back next week. We have one more thing to do, and it's either meow like the black cat or
Wait,
Patty.
wait.
Patty.
One more thing.
Mhm.
oh. Wands up to Rob's mom, our beautiful producer, Rob's mom, transitioned, and we love him and we love her. And he's here with us. He did this anyway because we are family. And he even went to the movies with her to see something that he wrote this
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence
Silence of the Lambs.
And
So,
it terrified him.
and so here's to Rob's mom.
Wands up.
Wands up.
We love you, Rob.
We love you.
Love you,
Wands up.
Rob.
Now it feels weird to cackle or meow.
I think we could end it here.
I can
Yeah.
We can